Hello, everyone. I hope you can both hear and see me. If not, just let me know in comments so I will fix it. I'm extremely delighted to welcome you on our first ever This Create Live in our community. First, for two reasons. Just because we really have never been connected before this way, and because it's the first live in Vista Create, as Vista Create brand literally a round of applause for it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ksenia Savchenko. I'm responsible for the community here. And those of you who have already been with us for quite a long time, well, hello to you. It's very good to be connected to you this way, to talk to you this way. And as you see, I'm a real person, not just artificial avatar from Vista Create team. To get connected, please introduce you in the comments. Tell us, are you a newbie here or a devoted Vista Create user and community member? What is your area of work, and even where are you from? In the pandemic world, it's especially priceless to know that we all alive people are gathered today here from all corners of the world. So why are we here today live, and what Swiss would be about it all? I bet all of you are overloaded with tons of webinars, workshops, articles, and books to read, and all of this competing with Netflix, YouTube, for sure, just opportunity to have a day without information and notes. I can definitely relate to it, but we organize it not just to take your time. I will be honest with you, where the idea of exclusive lives here in community has been living in my head for a year. That's insane. But my goal wasn't to do something just to do it. My goal was to bring you a real value that would be helpful in your path, some untold stories, some useful insights. With this great product and our community, our mission is to provide you with full coverage of experience, of expertise, bringing some light to your journey in different areas and specialties of business and digital world. So now we feel really empowered to do it, to add that 360 degrees value in marketing, operations, mindset, business vision, strategy, some tools, personal effectiveness, even maybe, etc., etc. So we are aiming to help people on your path jump straight into real life, business, market, assisting your clients, customers, and yourself at the highest level. So today, I really need a special bunch of your support. Please watch, comment, ask questions, introduce yourself and your businesses. I will be happy to hear from you. And in the end of this live, I will also introduce you to our brand new ambassadors program. And after live, there will be the post with some results from our creative contents about 10,000 members of our communities. So stay tuned. It will be quite interesting for you too. And now it's time to introduce you to our first speaker and guest for today, Kimberly, organic content expert and wellness entrepreneur. Kim has experience of more than a decade, and she has collaborated with global brands that are real love marks, for me in particular, at least. Kim, welcome. We can see and hear you.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you
Hi.
for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
good to hear that. So, Kim, my first question before we will start our topic for today, I
Mhm.
would suggest to talk about your experience and you as a person. You has collaborated with such brands as Grammarly,
Mhm.
Claria, Restream. By the way, we can say hello to Restream today just because their software helps us with the stream. And
Mhm.
what was the beginning of your journey? And maybe you can highlight some stages in your professional and personal path.
So honestly, the very beginning of my journey was being a writing tutor at Alma College. I wouldn't have gotten in with Grammarly if I hadn't had that experience. It's kind of wonderful how that serendipity happens, because I just happened to have that experience, just happened to be in the right place, and I got this wonderful opportunity to work in social media for Grammarly. And at the time, it was a very small company. I think we were only like 12 people. They just were starting. They just branded as Grammarly. And I was given
that
this
Grammarly one day was a little company.
Yeah. It was very small. I think I joined just a month or so before the current CEO joined, and I was given this Facebook page, and told basically like, we started it a little bit, but do something with it. So, and luckily the environment there was basically such that I was encouraged to learn, and I did a lot on the job, but a lot because I didn't have formal training in marketing, or even like any real strong background on like how to do it. I just went by my instinct. And that was, well, what would I like to see? And it turned out that what I like to see, and what basically being true to what I thought people would want to consume, that is being authentic, drove us from 5,000 followers to over 5 million in about 5 or 6 years, and that was all organic growth.
Yeah.
We experimented with ads only, and we'll get into this a little bit later, when we were affected by some Facebook algorithm changes. But for the most part, like, everything we did was completely organic, and I didn't know that there was another way to do it. For the years that I was working at Grammarly, and then when I started working on the blog and just content in general at Grammarly, I just thought, that was the way it was all done. And over time, I realized that was really a unique experience to build such a huge following, completely bootstrapped and organically. And since then, I've taken that knowledge and sort of been working with different brands all over, consulting in organic content, consulting in brand. And a real focus for me then is just finding your voice and staying true to it. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
The best recipe. Amen. Yeah. And really, that's so inspiring. And you told us about your experience as a heart specialist. But I'm also curious about your journey as wellness entrepreneur. I know you started recently. How did you start?
Yeah, that's probably actually been the first time that I really turned this concept of authenticity back on myself. I was always quite good at helping others to do it, but it's this, a typical growth pattern where we kind of practice outwardly, and then when we kind of feel brave enough, we are able to do it internally. So I have a long history of interest in health that stems to my childhood. I had some very traumatic experiences as a child with my mother and my sister's health. And that sort of instilled in me initially a fear of like wanting to control health. Over time, that evolved into like a wonder of like what's possible when we understand our own bodies and what we can do with it. And in the last year, I made the transition. I got my training as an integrative nutrition health coach. And now I'm building a business and consulting companies on integrative wellness and integrative health. And, for me, that's probably the greatest work that I could be doing is working on transforming health in the way we orientate ourselves to total, complete, integrated wellness.
Wow. Good luck with it. I can
Thank you.
also relate to your story maybe sometimes, and that your childhood experience also motivates you to do something right about it, to do something better. And also very interesting how you were able to mirror your experience to use it from the big brands to your own company, to your own consultancy. That's especially good just because it's not somewhere in different place. It's now realized in real life in your project. So
yeah, and it, sorry to interrupt. It is a different beast when it's you. Like when it's your business. There's there's almost more hesitancy because you're really putting yourself out there. And so that's one of the things to talk about today is like, how can we represent ourselves in a way that feels good, but also feels professional. So we're not having that, oh, my brain is blanking. It'll come to me.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
imposter syndrome. That's what it is.
Yeah.
There we
Yeah.
go. Imposter syndrome. So, getting over that. Yeah.
Okay, so jumping a bit more to our topic for today, I will start it with a little story as well. In 2019, quite long before the whole pandemic started, I jumped into the one New York Times article by Nellie Bowes, and she was a technology reporter there and wrote an article about how human contact became a luxury good for us at that time. She quotes the chief executive of the Luxury Institute. I didn't know about the existence of Luxury Institute before that article, but whatever. And that chief said that we are now seeing the luxurification of human engagement. Now education, healthcare stories, everyone is starting to look at how to make experience more human. And the human contact is very important right now just because it's so rare. And I think it's completely also relates to the digital world, to the brand business world. So human contact is a lot about authenticity for me. But the term itself in marketing and communication, oftentimes there are a lot of abstract terms that are complex and difficult to understand, especially if they're not so touchable, then you can measure it or see it physically. So what is your definition for authenticity?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because it's definitely because you can't measure it. You kind of run the risk of like forcing it a little bit, and that's because sometimes businesses or you running your own business might be somewhat disconnected from your truth or your story. So authenticity, the way I think about it is when there's a coherence between your internal preferences, your internal motivations, and what you do externally. So it's this honesty between the internal self and the external, projection of what's happening inside, and this coherence between the motivation and execution. When it's done well and truthfully and honestly, it really can help build human connection, because the people, that story, whatever your story is that resonates with people, they will gravitate to you simply because of that story.
Yeah, I think that's the main touch points. We know, all of us know the theory of touch points in marketing. So you need to have like 7 touch points to people so they can buy your product or just use your service. But I think the human touch is maybe the most important, the most decisive touch point for this.
Yeah, and actually a lot of people, if they have a really good human interaction from the first experience, the retention, all of the other touch points become almost secondary. They're not as important because that first impression was really profound. And this is nothing new. I mean, you said the article you read was from 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it makes it even more relevant now because we're thinking about the pandemic and the fact that like people don't feel the same about connecting with each other in person. But this has been literally years in the making, this process of like introducing authenticity, having there be a human aspect to our business dealings and our interactions with each other. Rohit Bhargava, sorry. He's actually worked on this in his, he has non-obvious trends. He's been doing it for over a decade. And he has a really interesting process of distilling the trends. He does it manually with his team. Not with a computer or anything fancy. He literally like pulls everything together and storyboards it for an entire year. But one of the things that's come out of this in the last several years, and enough so that he made it kind of like a mega trend, was this idea of human touch, that authentic and imperfect experiences delivered by humans are highly valued. And so when we think about authenticity, it can be helpful maybe to think about, how is this human? How does this represent me as a human, or our company and the humans in it?
Oh, wow. Yeah. We are talking with quite high leveled quotes, I think, and statements right now, but everyone who is watching us and everyone who ever thought about the right way of running business and communications for that, I think these people are asking themselves really understandable question: why do I need this? There is a book by Simon Sinek, Start with Why, and even if you haven't read it, you will get the point. We need to answer for the fundamental question, what it will give us in the end, why you needed to invest time, some resources in that. What is your perspective on that?
Well, there are some conflicting motivations. Sometimes the fastest growth doesn't coincide with the most authentic approach. That's just a reality. And I think we can talk a little bit more later about how we find that balance. But there are some real significant business benefits to understanding authenticity for your business and for yourself, and how to execute it. So the first part is understanding the why you're doing your business in the first place. Like, that motivation is, really should underpin everything you're doing anyway. Why are you running this business? What's your goal? And to be clear, authenticity doesn't always necessarily have to be altruistic. If your goal is to make money and transform an industry, that can be your authentic self, and making money and transforming an industry. And that can be how you market it too. And that will resonate with certain people. But then there's also this piece of like, why does that authenticity matter for the business itself? So this is like day-to-day operations. And the fact is, 90% of consumers have, and this is through surveys that have been done. I think I found this information through the Harvard Business Review, that 90% of consumers actually will take action to reward a brand for authenticity. And a full 52% would recommend that brand to others, and about 50% will continue to pledge loyalty to the brand. And so that's, again, coming back to this experience of when we can deliver like a really good, authentic first impression or early impression, people will stay committed to that because of that human connection that they have. Furthermore, a lot of consumers in a Conan Wolf survey, 72% of those questions said that they actually valued authenticity above innovation and product uniqueness. So they really want to have a relationship with the brand that feels human. Now, what this means in real life is that you increase brand awareness organically with high levels of trust. That's a huge value for the business. Your business is growing organically and with a significant level of trust because of that word of mouth. You have, and kind of on another token, you have actually real resilience in the face of some of these algorithmic changes that are happening in the digital space. And so aside from the business growth, business stability, you have this resilience. And that's hard to measure until it happens. It's like one of these things where you kind of have to trust that it's worthwhile. So I'll share an example, like two comparisons between Grammarly and the time I had at MacKeeper. So Grammarly, like I said, we did everything organically. We were really thinking about the kind of stuff we'd like to see because we were all grammar nerds and word nerds. And when we were hit with algorithmic changes, this is on Facebook, inevitably, whenever they would hit, everything would drop. And this it was a trend, still is, of Facebook taking organic engagement off of your newsfeed and basically like moving towards a pay-to-play model, especially for businesses and pages. And it really sucked. But, inevitably, when we continued throughout the year to to have these organic, authentic interactions with people, we'd get back to that 30% engagement rate, which was unheard of to have that amount of engagement. So it's, despite the hit that we took almost every year in the algorithmic change, we always made our way back organically. And it was just because that the people really understood that this is what they wanted. Now look at like MacKeeper, for example. Now a lot of this stuff with MacKeeper, this is Clario now, they rebranded. When I was brought on precisely because they had a problem in their branding. They were considered inauthentic, spammy, not helpful, not honest. And they brought me in and we were looking at things. And one of the factors we had to modify was the search, because their search ranking tanked, and a big part of it was there was just no trust. There had, people weren't engaging with the brand the way they should be, even though I will say the people working at MacKeeper are super honest people. Well, Clario now, super honest people, wonderful, happy, passionate people who really wanted to deliver a security and Mac utility that worked really well. But this was not coming through any of the marketing, any of the branding. And whenever the Google algorithm hit, they would just tank further and further, and they were like disappearing. And, for a long time, Google has been prioritizing this expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, EAT. And the official recommendations from Google are precisely like, your content has to be good, it has to solve the user problem, and it has to be real. And usually, the more real it is, the less affected you are by algorithm changes. In 2018, with the Medic update, for example, the healthcare industry, where they had actual valuable information that people engaged with and followed, weren't really as affected as a lot of other pages who lost 30 to 51% of their rankings because they were trying to game authenticity for Google rankings, and it doesn't work. And so it's harder. You don't necessarily know when it will pay off, but investing in that authentic brand presence, that how you represent your brand, it does have benefit, not just in brand awareness, not just in business growth, but in resiliency for very tangible problems like smarter and smarter algorithms. We were talking actually, you and I earlier, and I think I think you might have said that as the machines are getting smarter, we have to be more human.
Yeah.
And that's a very important case here for authenticity.
I also liked the thought about that first impression. I'm a person not too deep into psychology, but I know about psychological phenomena of the first impression, that we can have our first impression of the absolutely unknown person or unknown business. We need for it just a few seconds, and that's it. The work is done, and it's extremely difficult then to change that impression. You need to put some efforts in it. So talking about what is included into authenticity, what builds it? Can we do it step by step, or should it be a solid structure of vision, some must-have expressions of your brand identity, or some actions to your customers and clients?
So the first part of authenticity for a business, and I would actually argue for a person too, if you're just thinking about how you can be a better you, is to understand your values. So looking at your core values and knowing what you stand for and what kind of change or effect you want to have in the world, how you want to be in the world, is very important. Identifying core values takes work, though. Some people you might know, you were meditating and you had a vision of what it would be, and but I mean, that works for an individual or a very, a self-run business or something like that. But when you have a organization that, has been in business for years, or 2 or 3 or 4, or has grown really quickly and didn't do that work early on, that's more of a process, because you have to pull that information from the entire company. Those values kind of pop up in the behaviors that you see kind of around the office or in the way that you talk to each other, and sort of distilling that and getting everybody on the same page, and then turning it into language that you can use to understand yourselves and to explain yourselves to your potential clients or customers. That takes work. And then from there, once you identify your values, you want to build out your brand consistency. So this would start with like a brand book where you're outlining your values, the language and messaging you use that kind of captures those values, the way you talk about the problem you're solving, the way you talk about yourselves, the way you talk about people. But then it goes beyond that in actually really thoroughly identifying every point where a customer is going to interact with your brand and making it as human as possible. So where do clients and customers interact? What is that experience like for them? You know, that's the other part. There's an empathy piece of this. You know, what is it like for them? Are they really going to catch the vibe you're putting out? You know, are you explaining it correctly? What do your ads look and feel like, or your social posts? And do they match your website and your social channels and your email? What about the support staff, or the woman who answers your phone, or man who answers your phone, whoever answers your phone? You know, every touch point has to be consistent in that messaging, that language, and the core values that you have. It really needs to be infused everywhere, because inconsistencies will breed mistrust, or, you know, at worst, and at best, confusion. You know, like I thought that they liked that this was a company that did this or did this, and now they're doing this. That's confusing. And these inconsistencies can be difficult to overcome when they actually have set with a brand for a long time. Like a really good example of this is sort of the love-hate dynamic that people have developed with Facebook. Oh, right? So it's Facebook. Well, we can talk a lot about Facebook in this conversation. That's a good example. It's like part of our lives, and it's a huge part of our lives. But that's almost the only reason why so many people tolerate it, is because there's nothing better, right? Mm-hmm. But people don't really enjoy the experience there. And anytime Facebook puts out some message about like, oh, we're here to connect you with your friends, you're like, well, no, all I see is ads. I don't see the posts from my friends or the pages I liked. And so it's a really inconsistent experience with what they are telling you is happening and what is actually happening. And that's what you want to avoid. Yeah. And then if you, on top of this, if you have the resources to layer in an actual human interaction, you know, talking to someone directly, meeting up with them, whatever, when you have that real face-to-face experience, or something like this where people can see real people, you know, those things really do contribute to the trust and the level of like human touch and authenticity that people associate with the brand or the business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For one moment, I thought we have like two, I don't know, too sweet conversation, like about values and so on and so on. But when you bring the Facebook to the topic, and I'm okay, we're in the real life. But again, taking a bit skeptical role in this conversation, mm-hmm. I would say that more and more platforms move toward pay-to-play models, and there is something mass market and unappealing about that. Everything, also what we do for our businesses, we aim to measure CPM, CEM, conversions, and so on and so on. How our efforts towards authenticity will match our efforts toward performance?
Yeah, so this can be a challenge, because like we mentioned earlier, that sometimes the striving to be authentic and striving for growth can be a little bit at odds, you know, because the tools we use for growth that objectively work well, like clickbait, for example, or more aggressive advertising, those can be, like, in the short term, very effective ways to grow the business or get an idea out or raise awareness. So how do we balance that? So there are a few pieces here. One is that authenticity absolutely augments the effect of all of these other efforts. So if you're making an ad campaign, and yes, people don't really like ads. Use of ad blockers is the highest it's been in history. People don't like ads, but when you have a really authentic on-brand ad, the effectiveness of that ad goes significantly higher. And when it's done really well, people actually delight in these advertisements. They don't dread them, and there are some really great examples of this over time, like the Squatta Potty. I think years ago they came out with this really hilarious ad with a unicorn, and it was a digitally based ad campaign, and it was just so honest and authentic. It went viral. Now, since then, we've seen a lot of companies sort of copy this style because they see that that it goes well when you're yourself kind of funny, talking about problems, like engaging in sort of fantastical imagery. It caught on as a trend, as a valid way to market your business. But the point being is that authenticity, if you're doing it across the board, it will enhance performance, however you decide to approach it. So you still can do very click-worthy copy, very more aggressive ad campaigns or experimental ad campaigns, experimental marketing in general, and infuse that with your voice and to do it really well. And it should help. And then honestly, we really have to come back to the fact that organic engagement still underpins our biggest platforms. So Facebook and all of the assets that they own are still underpinned by this organic engagement. And if we look at Facebook specifically, because that's my strength, they still try to push the content from real people. I'm not saying this correctly. So they have lots of ads, and we see more and more ads. There's tons of ads based on Facebook. But the content you see in your news feed, they will, the people you interact with most, the pages you interact with most, that's the content you will see. So that organic engagement, if you can find a way to encourage that organic engagement without advertising, for example, you can have authentic, like a steamroll effect or a snowball effect of engagement. It still underpins all of the success and functionality of these algorithms. So you can pay to skip over this work, but there is real value in building something organically, or at least having that be a big part of the strategy, and just infusing all of it with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely understand it, maybe on my own experience, because I think everyone can see how many companies also rely on their PPC advertisement mostly, and sometimes growth is not so connected to ethical approaches even.
Right.
Just because I can see that huge gap between some values that company has in their statements, for example, and what they really run for advertisement. I have been working also some time ago for a health and fitness family of applications, and oh my gosh, what we had for ads, that was absolutely terrible, I would say, as just a person, just because sometimes it could be an offensive content, embarrassing content, so ethical, but it made it money, like it really brings money. So of course company go for it. But again, I have some hope that platforms like Facebook and maybe more creative platforms will focus more on organic content, so we will have hope of a better future for our authentic content.
Well, and I think there are some signs that things are going in the right direction. There have been Google has made modifications to its advertising requirements. Facebook also, in general, very slowly, these trends have been to make them more user friendly and limit the amount of like emotional hijacking that can happen through an advertisement. But the thing, I guess the main point I want to say is that you don't have to, like, they're not at odds with each other. It's more about finding your balance. So like if we're talking about how do you grow using these tools that could be questionable if you didn't do them well, how do you find that balance between authenticity and growing your business? And the fact is, it's more like, well, first of all, I would kind of encourage anybody that if any messaging is going out for that represents you or your business that doesn't reflect your values, it shouldn't go out. I don't care how much money it's going to make, because the kind of an alternative definition of authenticity is whether or not you stand by something regardless of profit. So as soon as you just shoot yourself in the foot as soon as you take profit over your values, because everybody then sees that it's not really, you don't really care about it, right? So it's just lip service, and that's like the worst thing you can do to build trust, because those examples, they live forever on Reddit, on review sites. They are hell to get rid of. So hard to get rid of, in fact, that you will think about rebranding and starting over. So just don't be tempted to do it. Find a way to have that really engaging ad campaign, but completely consistent with your values. And one of the ways you can do this experimental, maybe even clickbaity, and like and I prefer experimental, because we're not going to try to emotionally hijack people. We're really just trying to find the new sexy engagement format. And one way to do that is to think about it kind of like an investment portfolio. So kind of like stocks are more risky but can deliver strong returns. They also can lead to big losses. Well, these experimental campaigns, or these more like risky endeavors that you put out there for your brand, those are like your stocks. And your funds, that's your evergreen, consistent, content that you're putting out there that's full of authenticity and full of you, but it might not get as much traction, at least not right away. It'll happen over time. Those are your funds. And when you have a nice mix of both of them, you're golden. But if you have too much of only one of them, you're either sacrificing growth or delaying growth, or you're putting out too much risk for the business. And it's all of this is really a marathon. So a lot of times there's a huge pressure to have results immediately. And doing this well, you have to go, it's really kind of old-fashioned. You just have to keep your nose down and work at it. But there will come a time when something inevitably will happen, and you'll be very grateful that you have that deep trust in your brand and in your business.
I think we just a few metaphors right now, scenes in your authentic communication, and read it as a how for it. And also, I really like the metaphor about the marathon. That you don't take it as a sprint, then you need to just make a push, and then it all goes like this. It's a marathon. It's 42 kilometers and beyond that you need to run and make it right from the very beginning and till the end.
Right. Yeah. And this can be difficult if you're working in a space like I got most of my experience in IT. It can be difficult when you're constantly in these meetings that are run by agile approaches, and people, are like, okay, this literally, they call it a sprint. This sprint, we're doing this, and we have to achieve this, and we have to get so much done. And sometimes I think people confuse doing those tasks, which are like laying bricks in the foundation, with the goal itself. So sometimes you'll get wrapped up with like, we've been doing all this work, we've had, these sprints, where are the results? And with like laying the foundation for authenticity, those results might not come for a year or more. When we started getting when we got the snowball effect with organic growth on Grammarly, that came at year 3. So we just kept doing it and believing that we were, putting out good stuff. We liked it. The people that were engaged with us like it, until it took off. And then it paid off. But that was 3 years where people are asking, well, where's the growth? Where's the growth? I said, it's coming. Engagement is going up, but it's really hard in an agile environment to say, like, please trust me.
Yeah, a lot of patience and trust. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, switching from the skeptical part to more, idealistic part. What is also your brightest examples of companies that are good in authentic communications? Maybe you have some benchmarks in your mind.
Well, I have, it changes, because sometimes I'll come across a new brand and I'll be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love what they're doing. I love their voice, everything. So, but there are some big companies that most people will know that they will agree are fairly authentic. Disney is a really big one, and I think is pretty. Everybody universally will say that Disney is a pretty authentic brand. Almost everybody, when they consume something of Disney's, they have this very consistent, warm, childlike innocence that's awoken within them. And this goes for boys as much as girls, and boys more and more now that they bought the Star Wars franchise. But Disney is a great example, and it works on another level, actually, because they're stirring this childlike nostalgia inside people. They're actually getting some what Rohit Bhargava calls retro trust. So it's really fascinating idea about how there's a trend for people to trust more the things that they remember from the good days. So they're benefiting in 2 ways. Apple is also a pretty highly authentic brand. Not everybody likes them. They have a little bit of an elitist bent that you either love and you identify with, or feel is inhuman, and but it's consistent. And they do a pretty good job. Patagonia is another very popular brand that for decades has been promoting sustainability, like improvement in product life cycle, enjoyment in connection with nature. And these messages and these values have been consistent for years, and they have die-hard fans that have been with them for literally years and years. And on a smaller approach, because I know these are kind of, if you are an individual entrepreneur, it can be very unhelpful to look at these big examples and think like, well, they have huge budgets, like it's a multinational company. How? I'm just me. So one of my favorite examples recently, and my husband and I are trying to start our family. We're really excited about this. I found this brand called Cuddle and Kind. This is a small family-owned business. They have a genuinely good approach where basically they sell these heirloom quality dolls and donate a portion of that money to buy meals for children. This small family business has bought over 17 million meals for families. And you can see in everything in their website, again, this is Cuddle and Kind. You can see on their website, everything is quality, love, making a difference. And that language is just so clear. People have bought into it. They bought, season after season, they buy new dolls. They're not a huge company. This is something that like you could do if you got passionate about making dolls and feeding children, so these are really fun to see. These are my favorite ones, is when I see smaller businesses getting authenticity and branding right. And then weakly authentic, I think we've talked about some of these examples kind of on the other end of the spectrum. I guess in this point, it's important to point out that truly inauthentic companies don't last. They get out-competed or bought up or transformed, rebranded, that sort of thing. So most of the examples we have are from generally authentic brands that screw up, or brands that are just too big where they, these mistakes they make don't completely undermine the business. Facebook being my favorite example. The algorithm cuts out friends and family, but still pushes marketing and engagement bids. But then all the messaging is like, Facebook is where you connect and you can send messages, and you've been friends for years with these people, but you're like, oh, I've been friends for years with these people, but I haven't seen any of their posts, in a long time. So, and sort of similarly, Amazon has had a really good run, but, with the recent acting out of Jeff Bezos, who is Amazon, like that's how people think about him, and Amazon, it's really started to make everything feel sort of sleazy and scammy, and like he's out of touch with people, and maybe the brand is too. So a lot of people have been sort of stepping away from Amazon, like, oh, maybe there's some other options because this is feeling kind of gross. It doesn't feel good. I don't identify with this anymore. Yeah. And this is sort of like a warning for small businesses. Small businesses don't have the luxury to really mess up with authenticity. The reason is because you don't have the finance and the size to withstand consistent, failures or mistakes on this front. And one mistake can be enough to just destroy trust completely. So I would say for smaller businesses or businesses starting out, this exercise in authenticity is more important. It's like one of the most important exercises you can do.
Some very powerful examples for you.
Yeah.
And again, one reminder for all people, because just society is so obsessed and mad about personal brand. Everyone wants it, everyone wants to grow it, and thinks that it would be just the key to success. But again, with huge success comes huge responsibility. So people should also think, should you maybe distinct your personal brand from your brand business. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Kim, for such an insightful conversation. I think I will wrap it up a bit, but a few questions there are in comments, and I will also start from question from me. Yeah, let's imagine I would like to start my own small business. What should be my first steps to make it right, to build the authenticity and authentic communications from the scratch, from the very beginning?
It just goes back to identifying your brand values or your personal values for the business, and your why. So again, when you're figuring out your values, the first step is to figure out your why. Why are you doing it? And then why, should it matter to your customers? And when you start to think about that, you're going to become aware of what those values are that are important to you, the purpose and mission that you have, and build from there. If you have an existing company that needs you have a team of people, it's more than just offsites and like building up the company culture. It's really about having valuable conversations with leadership or key team members and asking questions like, what behaviors do you want to see in your company or in your team? Or what do you love about this work? Because those sorts of insightful questions are going to kind of stir the values that you have. HubSpot, interestingly, if you need a little bit of sort of inspiration, I guess, to think about like, what is a value? And, is it what I think is important, or how to phrase it. HubSpot has a really great article that just sort of summarizes examples of core values, and so I'd encourage people to check that out, to just go and sort of explore and see what words resonate with them.
Yeah, 1+ for the HubSpot blog recommendation, just because
they're great. They've been great for years.
Yeah. So just come and visit and educate yourself in
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot. And also you can visit Vista Create blog, little advertisement from me. We try to make it an online media with also quite insightful and fundamental articles for you. Okay, one question from Ksyusha Tunikova. Do you think authenticity is something a brand can fake?
This is such a good question. This is such a good question because this was on my notes and I wanted to get to it, but we didn't quite have time. No. I mean, yes, to a certain extent you can, but when you fake it, something like more evil almost emerges, which is this post-truth, post-authenticity, where authenticity, like there's a trend actually of authenticity, because it's been years that people have been talking about this, where it's become commoditized and diluted. And there are companies that will pay you lip service. Basically, they'll lie to your face and say, we care about this, we care about that, and then they don't. So, I mean, Facebook, again, is a really good example for a lot of people, because they're like, I don't feel like super in love with this. You can tell I don't really like Facebook. Even though I worked on it for years and I still depend on it, it's a love-hate relationship. But another example is there's a wave right now of greenwashed, sustainable fashion and goods on social media, on Amazon, and all of them look like they're eco-friendly, good for the planet, save climate, stop, put out the burning planet sort of stuff. But if you look deeper, a lot of it is just hijacking authentic, value-driven human language to make you feel better and to buy their product. But when you look at what they're actually doing, it's just the same as what's been done forever. So I think, it'd be really hard to genuinely fake authenticity, because everything has to be consistent at every touch point. And if it's not your truth, those cracks are gonna show.
Talking about the cracks and maybe a continuation of this topic in question, how a person can tell a truly authentic company from a fake authentic one. So how you can see that gap in sincereness?
This is a really good question, and it's probably different for different people. Most people have this kind of intuition that will tell them, like, this is weird, or I don't quite get it. But some ways you can tell are if you actually see brand consistency, like investment in real brand consistency across channels. So when you go to their social channel, does it look and feel like their website? And are they saying the same things? When you go to the app store for this company, does it look and feel like the website, or does it look like something else? And when you find these inconsistencies, they don't necessarily mean that you've definitely found, a faker. But what it can mean is that the company hasn't quite done the work to really roll out that authenticity to all of their channels, which means that there are probably ways that they're doing business that don't quite line up with the values that they're promoting on their website. So that would be one of the ways I would say. If there's reviews, also that can be a really good way, because people can share their experience. They said they were going to be this friendly, helpful organization. Were they? So some of the things you would normally do to be just a savvy, sharp shopper, getting all that information, and then using your gut to say, well, this feels right, or it doesn't.
God is always telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. One more question from Elliot. So Elliot is starting a speed dating business,
Ooh.
branch out social to help people make better connections in person, offline in a safe and comfortable environment, while creating an online community, providing valuable dating tips and advice content through social media. And the question is, as a new business starting on social media is becoming difficult to gain and create a community organically. At the
Yes.
moment, I'm just working on my own. Do you think that I should be creating videos of me on my social media posts, for example, reels or etc.? I'm happy to be on camera, but don't want to turn away or put people off my seeing me all the time instead of message from the business itself.
Yeah. Well, a couple things here. This is a very interesting and good question. First thing first, if you want yourself to be part of the brand, like maybe the brand or a representative of the brand, go ahead and put yourself out there.
Mhm.
If that's what you want for your company and that's what you want. If you're imagining someday selling the company or offloading some of the responsibilities, you might think more strategically about how closely you identify the brand experience with you as a person, just because you want to be able to step away when the time's right. So it depends on what your goals are for your business. In terms of growing organically, video is a great way to do it. But I'll ask you a question. Do you really like building organic communities on Facebook, for example, or on social? Do you like making videos? If you like making videos, maybe your channel should be somewhere else. Maybe you should focus just on YouTube and not worry so much. So authenticity goes beyond just what you're saying, but also where you say it. So that's something I would encourage you to think about. And then finally, yes, it is harder to build organic communities right now. I want you to think about how you do it. Some hacks that can still work are to spend more time on relationship building, and not necessarily with potential individual customers that have never heard of your business, but influencers. So big businesses or bigger companies have been doing this for years, influencer marketing. I would really encourage smaller businesses to make these same relationships, do genuine networking and friendship building, and use those relationships to start building your organic community, because those existing communities, that trust inherent in that person is going to be so much more valuable to your business, and that time investment is going to pay off more than all of the hours you spend creating posts for an audience that isn't able to see your content. So think more about where you're going to get the biggest value for the time that you spend on your content creation. Influencer marketing is a great way to go. Relationship building and creating content for channels with existing audiences is a great way to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Elliot is also asking like micro influencers, and here I will maybe answer on my behalf. Yes,
Yeah.
you don't need to invest to the bloggers with millions of audience at the beginning, just because sometimes they are not so fulfilled with relevant audience or your audiences. So you need just to search people with the relevant vibe to you, the relevant messages that could be also affordable for you. So you can work with micro influencers, maybe have some promotions, or just make like a people relationship with them, because
Mm-hmm.
influence marketing is not just about marketing, it's about building the relationship. So you may also suggest to the influencer to be your friend, to be ambassador of your brand, maybe give some perks from your platform to them, and that's it. And I think you will find it very useful and helpful, or at least you will try this channel and see how it works for you too.
And I'll add something here. Really good networking is just about being a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have certain skills, like you can make videos, maybe you find communities of people that don't have video, and maybe you do I'll help you with some video. and we can sort of do this trade-off. So I really encourage you to think outside the box of like what big companies are doing. If you're taking advice from these big marketing teams that have, thousands and millions or even millions of dollars to put into these projects, that's not going to work for your small business. It's really a person-focused approach to get started. And so, think about what you have as a person, what your value is as a person, what skills you have beyond just the money you have. As a person, you're a good friend, what can you offer, and start from there. And I think you'll be surprised how effective those relationships become.
Thank you very much, Kim, for our today's conversation. I think it was very authentic. And very useful for me. It was a great pleasure to talk to you again. I'm a person who is in marketing and communications area for quite a long time, but you really value and appreciate such conversations and new insights that I definitely get. And I think all people that watched us gain some values too.
I hope so.
Thank you for joining us for today. I will leave some contacts, if you don't mind, from you, so people that are interested in connecting with you and maybe become a friend with you or reaching for your consultancy will have your contact. And as wrapping up, I would just remind our viewers that we have this show every week, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. And next week, Brett Hussey, he will join us with very interesting topic. I'm intrigued a bit about this cycle, how to create constant demand for your offerings. So it would be especially valuable for all people that are freelancers and want to build a consistent system of clients and customers, and that will give you a pleasant feedback and share a word with their friends. So come and join next Wednesday. As I promised, a little announcement about our ambassadors program. So just today, we launched a brand new Vista Create Ambassador program. There you can join and become our proclaimed ambassador, gain some perks from the product, spread the word about Vista Create, and receive some financial rewards and new community for you with other people that have their audience and would be glad to connect with you. So just in a few minutes, I will share a post and a link to it, so you can also apply to our program. And again, as I promised, we ran quite a little creative contest for 10,000 members in our community, and you guys submitted some of your recent works you made with this Create product. I would like to congratulate Mirello Fioresi for winning a prize and getting Amazon gift card and also 6 months of Vista Create Pro. And also other people that were submitting your works, you will receive also a pro subscription for Vista Create account for 1 month. So I will reach to you shortly. And now I think it's all for today. Thank you for joining us. Please spread the word about Vista Create community. Invite your friends. Invite other people that will find this information and our live shows really useful for them. And I see you in a week. Have a good day, good evening, wherever you are. Just stay with us. Thank you and bye.